The story unfolds in a world reshaped by the rise of awakening. In a bleak, frozen wasteland, powerful individuals assembled with a singular goal: to conquer the Death Den, an S-rank dungeon housing an ancient, god-tier entity. As the first dungeon to appear on planet Azure, it had stood undefeated for decades, its entrance marked by the skeletal remains of countless masters who never returned. But today was different. A warrior named Su Ming had entered the Death Den alone. After a brutal battle, he emerged victorious, having slain the dungeon's monstrous deity. Yet, as he staggered toward the exit, drained and wounded, he wasn't met with applause, but betrayal. Former comrades ambushed him, surrounding him with hostile intent. One sneered, demanding he hand over the divine artifact he had just secured. Another mockingly called him the hero of humanity, promising a swift death if he surrendered. Su Ming, his body flickering with residual power, instantly understood. They had waited for him to defeat the entity so they could steal the artifact for themselves. He wondered if this had been their plan all along. From among the traitors, a blonde-haired man named Jiang Tang stepped forward. His sword, crackling with blue lightning, gleamed menacingly. Addressing Su Ming, he appealed to their shared past, promising to spare his life in exchange for the artifact. With a smirk, Jiang Tang added that Su Ming had no power left to resist. Gripping his own flame-color blade, Su Ming cursed his own naivety. These were men he had fought beside for years, whom he had called brothers. He had never imagined they would turn on him. The bitterness of betrayal surged within him. Refusing to surrender, he unleashed a violent surge of red and purple energy from the divine artifact, shaking the battlefield. Standing tall, Su Ming dared them to try taking the Ring of Dao Defiance, warning that none among them had the strength to claim it. The eruption of energy stunned the traitors. One of Jiang Tang's men, impatient, urged an immediate attack. Another, Jiang Ming, advised caution, warning against rushing in while Su Ming wielded the artifact. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky. A pink-haired woman named Xiaoman landed beside Su Ming, calling out to him and rushing into his arms. She embraced him tightly, saying she had heard rumors of betrayal and had come because she was worried. Su Ming gently reassured her, insisting their enemies posed no threat. Still, he wondered how they had tracked him so precisely. That's when Jiang Tang smiled knowingly. A searing pain shot through Su Ming's back. He turned in shock. Xiao Man had plunged a dagger into him. She whispered that she had been the one to reveal his location. A red magic circle glowed beneath her palm as she twisted the blade. Su Ming stared at her in disbelief, unable to comprehend her betrayal. Across the battlefield, Jiang Tang raised his sword in triumph, declaring that the final catalyst was now in place. He then commanded the activation of the imprisonment formation. Instantly, a massive red sigil appeared in the sky above Su Ming, sealing him in place. From his wound, glowing red chains erupted, coiling around his body and suppressing his power. He recognized the curse mark as Run Xiaoman's work and realized she must have been planning this betrayal long before today. Jiang Tang walked up beside her, casually draping an arm around her shoulders. Mocking Su Ming, he explained that the imprisonment formation had been crafted specifically for him and would stop him from channeling even a trace of energy. Xiaoman added coldly that she had belonged to Jiang Tang all along. She told Su Ming that he had only ever been a tool. His rare 9-star talent made him perfect for retrieving the divine artifact on their behalf. Shattered by her confession, Su Ming collapsed to his knees, screaming in fury and despair. With Su Ming bound and helpless, Jiang Tang ordered his men to kill him and seize the artifact. They rushed forward, weapons glowing as they prepared to strike. But before they reached him, the ground exploded upward. A gigantic skeletal hand burst forth, followed by an army of skeletal warriors that intercepted the attackers and formed a barrier around Su Ming. Stunned, Su Ming stared, wondering who had come to rescue him. A woman with light purple hair, hidden beneath a hooded cloak, descended into the battlefield. He recognized her, Ji Yao, the necromancer. Landing between him and the enemy, she raised her staff, determined to stop them. She urged Su Ming not to give in, vowing she wouldn't let the artifact fall into their hands. Jiang Tang scoffed at her appearance, dismissing her as yet another fool walking to her death. He bragged that with dozens of masters backing him, not even the great emperor could save Su Ming now. His men clashed violently with Ji Yao's undead summons. Enraged, Jiang Tang charged straight at Ji Yao, declaring that anyone who opposed him would die. During the chaos, one of his subordinates called out a warning for her to guard her flank, but it was a diversion. She turned instinctively, eyes widening in realization just as Jiang Tang lunged in. His lightning-wreathed blade swung toward her, and he told his former classmate not to take his actions personally. Still trapped, Su Ming could only watch in horror, screaming her name as the attack struck. With Ji Yao incapacitated, Jiang Tang seized his moment. He sneered at Su Ming, saying his concern for someone else was pointless. Now it was his turn to die. He drove his glowing blue sword deep into Su Ming's chest. Leaning close, Jiang Tang whispered a final cruel offer. Hand over the artifact, and he might let him live. But Su Ming had one final act of defiance. Gripping the chains that bound him, blood spilling from his lips, he glared at his betrayers with pure hatred. He called them monsters as a terrifying red and black energy surged violently within him. In a desperate final gambit, Su Ming activated a self-destructive god-tier technique, Annihilation Burst. A catastrophic explosion erupted from his body, forcing Jiang Tang and Ren Xiaoman to retreat in panic. When the shockwave faded, the battlefield fell silent. Su Ming, mortally wounded, reached out and whispered Ji Yao's name. Crawling to her side, he cradled her injured body in his arms, regret flooding his voice as he asked why she had come for him. After all the times he had failed her. Ji Yao, her expression softening into a faint, peaceful smile, raised a trembling hand to his face and whispered that if this was truly their end, then they should face death together. As his life ebbed away, Su Ming summoned a final surge of strength. His sword materialized in his hand, and he drove it into the ground before him, a silent declaration to his enemies. Holding Ji Yao close, Su Ming, the God-Slayer, swore a solemn oath. If he were to be reborn, he vowed, he would hunt down Ren Xiaoman and Jiang Tang and tear them apart with his own hands. From a distance, his betrayers watched in confusion, until a sudden look of horror crossed Jiang Tang's face. Realization struck. Su Ming's plan was clear. He intended to die with the divine artifact, dragging it into the abyss of the Death Den so it could never fall into their hands. With his final vow spoken, Su Ming glared at them one last time. "If you want the divine artifact," he said coldly, "then come and get it." Then, clutching Ji Yao tightly, he leaped from the cliff into the churning chaos below. In his grasp, the ring of Tao Defiance flared with a brilliant, blinding golden light. The world around them dissolved into pure whiteness. His hand fell limp, lifeless. But then, awareness returned. Su Ming blinked and found himself not in the abyss, but staring up at a clear blue sky and a familiar school building. Confused, his dazed thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a voice over a loudspeaker. An announcer was declaring the results of the 127th Awakening Ceremony at Xuanjing First Academy. A student named Wang Chong had awakened, but only as an enchanter, a non-combat, lifestyle class. Su Ming looked down at himself and realized he was once again a young student, surrounded by a crowd of teenagers. Whispers passed through the crowd, some commenting on how poor the Academy's luck was this year. The phrase awakening ceremony echoed in his ears, stirring something deep within him. Then came a wave of recognition. He had traveled back in time. Somehow, impossibly, he was 18 again on the very day of his own awakening ceremony. As he stood among the students, Su Ming's memories surged back with startling clarity. He recognized Wang Chong, whom everyone had nicknamed Fatty. In his previous life, Wang had also become an enchanter. That detail confirmed it. This wasn't a dream. To further test his memory, he recalled who was next in line. He remembered that Li Songyang would awaken as a 2-star warrior, Qin Yu's awakening would fail, and Song Li would awaken as a battle mage. One by one, The events unfolded exactly as he remembered. Li Songyang celebrated his successful warrior awakening. Chun Yu wept in disappointment when his failed. Song Li stepped forward and became a battle mage. With each memory proven true, all remaining doubt vanished. A slow, confident smirk curved Su Ming's lips. He had truly been reborn. His expression quickly shifted to intense fury as the painful memory of his betrayal by Jiang Tang and Ren Xiaoman flashed through his mind. He felt that this second chance must be a gift from the heavens, granting him the power to rewrite his past and avenge his regrets. His thoughts were interrupted by a gasp from the crowd. On the stage, a younger version of Jiang Tang was awakening, surrounded by a powerful purple aura. The announcer excitedly declared that Jiang Tang had awakened a rare hidden combat class, Demon Puppet Warrior, with a powerful 8-star innate attribute. The students buzzed with excitement, saying it was expected from the young master of the prestigious Jiang family. Hearing this, Su Ming could only stare at his future enemy with cold, burning hatred. As the announcer celebrated the school's new genius, Su Ming felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned and was shocked to see a young, healthy Ji Yao in a school uniform. She told him she had been looking for him. Seeing his stunned expression, she asked if something was wrong. Overwhelmed, he quickly composed himself and said he just wanted to congratulate her in advance. Ji Yao looked confused and asked what he was congratulating her for. The image of her dying in his arms flashed through his mind. A genuine, gentle smile formed on his face as he told her it was nothing, that she would understand soon enough. With sincere relief, he added that it was really good to see her again. Just as he finished speaking, the announcer called for the next student, Ji Yao. Startled, she made her way to the stage. She placed her hand on the celestial steel, a large ancient artifact crackling with blue energy. As her fingers touched it, a massive surge of power erupted from the stone, engulfing her. The announcer, now shocked, declared that Ji Yao had awakened a hidden combat class, Necromancer, with a powerful 7-star attribute. The other students were stunned, buzzing with disbelief. Su Ming watched with a calm, knowing smile, thinking that everything was going exactly as he had remembered. And now, it was his turn. The announcer called for Su Ming. As he walked toward the stage, Ji Yao wished him luck. The other students were less optimistic, whispering that it would be impossible for a third hidden class to appear, especially for an orphan like Su Ming. The scene then shifts to provide context. This is planet Azure within the Dragon Nation, a world ruled by the Awakened. Decades ago, the advent of awakening occurred. Since then, everyone who turns 18 participates in a ceremony to become one of the Awakened. These individuals have fundamentally changed the world, gaining the power to bend reality and amass great wealth. But this power comes at a cost. The Awakened must constantly face dangerous trials, battling vicious beasts and exploring terrifying, monster-filled dungeons. As he approached the celestial steel, Su Ming reflected on his past life. He remembered that, as an orphan, he had relied on stipends and scholarships. On the day of his first awakening ceremony, he had been blessed by the heavens. A magnificent phenomenon descended as Su Ming awakened an incredibly rare 9-star innate attribute, along with a legendary class known as the God Slayer. Now, standing on the stage in his second life, he was determined to change his fate. He reached his hand toward the awakening artifact, silently vowing that today he would make the world see him in a new light. As he did, a massive surge of purple and pink energy burst forth, creating a spectacular phenomenon in the sky. The announcer stared in disbelief, wondering if this incredible surge signified the birth of a genius with a 9-star attribute, or something even higher. Ji Yao and the other students were equally stunned. Su Ming reached out, ready to feel the familiar flow of runes from his original awakening. But this time, something was different. A glowing blue sigil appeared on his chest, and from it, the divine artifact he had died with, the Ring of Tao Defiance, materialized. He stood frozen in shock, realizing the ring had somehow returned with him through time. Before he could fully process this, another unexpected event occurred. A strange sensation spread through his body and a holographic screen appeared before him. A system notification declared that the ultimate God-Slayer class system was successfully binding to him. It then announced that his awakening was complete, and he had been assigned a new class. But it wasn't the God-Slayer of his past life. It was something far greater, a mythic class called the Sword God. Su Ming could only stare in astonishment, struggling to comprehend the existence of a mythic class and the overwhelming title he had just received. The immense red energy radiating from his awakening left everyone speechless. The announcer, stunned, wondered aloud what kind of class could produce such a phenomenon. Among the crowd, students debated what it could mean. One nervously speculated that if it turned out to be a non-combat class, Su Ming would be doomed. Jiang Tang scoffed at this, saying that with such a powerful vision, it couldn't possibly be a lifestyle class. Yet as he watched, sweat rolled down his face from the sheer pressure of Su Ming's energy. So intense, he couldn't even move. Su Ming stood calmly at the center of the storm, taking in the information displayed on the golden panel before him. It confirmed that his awakened class was the Sword God, completely different from the God-Slayer of his previous life. He touched the interface, which completed an identity scan and verified his name as Su Ming. His new status appeared. His class was the Sword God, and he possessed a golden talent called Universal Ascension, a power that granted him the ability to elevate or evolve anything. Su Ming was stunned. He realized a golden talent ranked even higher than the legendary 9-star attribute he had awakened before. A confident smile spread across his face as he understood that this new power likely surpassed even the God's class. Eager to see what abilities it granted, he opened the skill interface. But his excitement quickly turned to shock. The skill screen displayed 0 progress and a single message: no abilities have been awakened. Su Ming's expression twisted in frustration. He grabbed at the holographic panel, shouting internally, how could golden-ranked talent possibly come with no skills at all? While Su Ming was preoccupied, the crowd grew restless, confused by the delay. Finally, the announcer called out, asking if he had completed his awakening. Su Ming glared at the skill-less interface in frustration. He couldn't believe that after awakening a supposed God-tier class, he had no abilities. He wondered if the system was malfunctioning. Suddenly, the panel displayed a new message, stating it had received his feedback and would resume guidance. A new prompt directed his attention to the ring of Tao Defiance hovering in front of him. Confused, he looked at the ring just as it began to glow. The system then announced that it had successfully identified the divine artifact. As soon as the ring was recognized, the system panel flared with light, and a massive pillar of golden energy erupted from Su Ming's position, shooting into the sky. The powerful shock wave blasted outward, forcing the announcer, who was also the Academy's principal, to brace himself. High above the celestial steel, a massive, glowing multicolored star materialized with the number 10 at its center. The principal's eyes went wide. He stammered in disbelief, recognizing the symbol for a 10-star innate attribute. His voice boomed through the microphone, announcing that Su Ming had awakened a 10-star hidden class, Swordmaster. The crowd erupted into chaos, shouting about the heaven-defying nature of a 10-star attribute, a level typically reserved for the nation's top scores. Jiang Tang stood in stunned silence, while another student remarked that he had thought Jiang Tang's 8-star awakening was insane, but Su Ming had just revealed a maxed-out 10-star attribute. The principal, beaming, declared that this was a banner year for the Academy. Not only had they seen multiple hidden classes, but now a Heaven's Chosen with a 10-star attribute. He admitted that while the Swordmaster class wasn't considered top tier, with a 10-star innate talent, Su Ming's future potential would be limitless. As a reward, the principal announced he would personally grant Su Ming a full set of cultivation-aiding items. However, not everyone was impressed. Whispers of disappointment began to spread. Some students called it a waste of talent, saying the Swordmaster was a bottom-tier class. They explained that it was a mediocre jack-of-all-trades type, forced to train in both ranged and close combat, splitting focus between physical and magical attacks, making it a textbook underpowered class. Other students laughed at his misfortune, mocking the disappointing outcome of a 10-star attribute paired with such a weak class. A few tried to defend him, suggesting that with enough hard work, a Swordmaster could still become a reliable damage dealer. And with Su Ming's talent, he might just pull it off. But cynics shut them down, arguing the class required twice the effort for half the results, and that he'd be lucky to clear a beginner dungeon. On stage, Su Ming overheard their dismissive words. He turned slightly, his eyes shadowed, thinking about how everyone viewed his Swordmaster class as worthless. As the crowd continued to murmur, Ji Yao ran up to Su Ming. With a bright smile, she congratulated him. Su Ming returned the sentiment. Ji Yao then encouraged him to ignore the other's nonsense, reminding him that awakening a 10-star talent was incredible. She admitted the Swordmaster class might be weak early on, but she was certain that with his talent, it wouldn't be a problem. Su Ming gave her a warm smile and thanked her, reassuring her that he wasn't letting their comments bother him. He then added cryptically that their underestimation was exactly what he wanted, leaving Ji Yao confused. Their conversation was interrupted when the announcer called the next name. The crowd cheered as Ren Xiaoman, the school's most popular girl, stepped forward. Jiang Tang was seen encouraging her. Ji Yao commented on her popularity, but Su Ming remained silent. Instead of watching, he turned and began to walk away. Ji Yao called after him, confused, reminding him that the ceremony wasn't over. Su Ming replied coldly, without looking back, that he wasn't interested. As he walked off, painful memories from his past life surged in his mind. He remembered how Ren Xiaoman had used him, only to betray and kill him without hesitation. He recalled the vow he made as he died and steeled his resolve for revenge in this new life. Later, Su Ming walked through the city, noting how the world still seemed unchanged from his memories. However, he knew some things were already different. Aside from his new class, he checked his system and discovered a skill called Total Concealment, a legendary ability that allowed him to hide or rewrite information about his equipment, class, and other skills. He recognized it as one of 4 skills he had carried over from his previous life. This realization triggered another memory, the glowing ring of Tao Defiance. He looked at his hands in shock, finally accepting that the divine artifact had truly followed him back through time. As he contemplated the ring, the system panel lit up again. It announced that it was integrating the divine artifact. Once complete, a new message appeared stating that Su Ming had inherited a portion of the skills from his old Godslayer class. He stared at the screen in disbelief, questioning how it was possible to retain skills from his past life's class while having awakened as the Sword God. A detailed status screen materialized, showing his name, Su Ming, level 1, with balance-based stats. His class was confirmed as the mythic world-unique Sword God, and his talent as Universal Ascension. The skills section now listed 4 abilities: Godslayer's Blade, Total Concealment, Shadow Step, and Insightful Eye. With this new information, Su Ming began to formulate a plan. He recalled an old proverb: a man is innocent, but carrying a treasure makes him a target. Knowing he wasn't yet strong enough to defend himself from others, he understood he had to be cautious. While his 10-star talent couldn't be hidden, he decided he must conceal all details related to his true mythic class, the Sword God. He vowed to make the most of this second chance and not repeat the mistakes of his past life. From experience, he knew that the beginner dungeon challenge would arrive on the 2nd day after the awakening ceremony. With his knowledge and abilities, Su Ming was confident that the beginner dungeon would pose no challenge. His goal was to level up faster than anyone else and acquire better gear. To achieve that, he decided to challenge the dungeon's hardest boss right from the start. But first, he needed a proper weapon. Meanwhile, in a luxurious room inside a high-rise building named Palace, a different scene unfolded. Jiang Tang and Ren Xiaoman were together. Ren teased Jiang Tang for bringing her to such a place immediately after the ceremony. Irritated, Jiang Tang told her not to mention the ceremony, complaining that Su Ming had stolen his spotlight. Ren Xiaoman, however, was already plotting. She told him not to be upset, explaining that even though Su Ming was merely a Swordmaster, his awakening attribute was extraordinarily high. She assured him that Su Ming still had plenty of value, and they would use him again when the time was right. Intrigued, Jiang Tang asked what she meant. Ren Xiaoman smiled faintly and showed him something on her phone. As Jiang Tang looked at the screen, his expression shifted from annoyance to surprise. Ren, her expression cold and calculating, laid out her plan. She was confident that if they dangled the right bait, Su Ming would fall for it. Then, just like before, they could use him to their advantage. Following his own plan, Su Ming arrived at a massive skyscraper that housed a large weapons market. He took the elevator to the 12th floor, where he was greeted by an employee of the Weapons Emporium. As he walked through the store, he noted that it was packed with newly awakened students preparing for the novice dungeon trial. He overheard some of them complaining about their lack of money, realizing they'd have to grind in dungeons just to afford decent gear. Su Ming's attention was soon drawn to a crowd gathered around a particular display. They were admiring a glowing blue sword called the Tyrant's Frostblade, a diamond-ranked weapon supposedly forged by a high-level greatsword class player. The crowd marveled at its rumored ability to freeze a monster's blood, but were intimidated by its steep price of 1 million Advent coins. While others expressed their awe, Su Ming smirked. He remembered from his past life that the weapon was a fake, and the merchant selling it would eventually be arrested. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice. He turned to see a well-dressed woman with short gray hair, flanked by 2 bodyguards. She asked if he was Su Ming. In return, he asked who she was. The woman introduced herself as Jiang Lan, vice director of the Jiang Ainen Group, and handed him her business card. Su Ming took the card, replying that he didn't believe they'd met before. Jiang Lan ignored the remark and, loud enough for others to hear, announced that on behalf of the Jiang Ainen Group, she would be covering all of his expenses for the day. She then added that she hoped he could do her a small favor. When Su Ming asked what kind of favor, she gestured to one of her bodyguards, who showed him a photo. It was an image of a young, smiling girl with her eyes hidden, surrounded by white flowers. Jiang Lan explained that the girl was her younger sister, Jiang Yuning, a student at his school who had just awakened. She revealed that she had already investigated his awakening and was aware of his 10-star talent. She reasoned that with his level of power, the novice dungeon would pose no challenge for him. She reminded him that only newly awakened students could enter, then made her request. She wanted him to team up with her sister and protect her so she could safely complete the trial. After a brief pause, Su Ming flatly refused, stating he wasn't interested. As he walked away, Jiang Lan stood in shock. She shouted after him, offering him his choice of any weapon in the store if he agreed. Her offer was met with silence. Furious, she fumed internally. How could a broke student who had simply gotten lucky dare to reject her? Just as Jiang Lan was stewing in anger, Su Ming stopped. With a calm expression, he turned back and said, "Is that so?" He then pointed to the most expensive weapon in the store and declared he would take the Tyrant's Frostblade, the fake sword worth 1 million Advent coins. Jiang Lan was enraged, convinced he was deliberately trying to extort her. She accused him of making things difficult and questioned whether he truly believed someone of his status was worth 1 million coins. Su Ming calmly reminded her that she had offered him his pick of any weapon. If she wasn't willing to honor her word, the deal was off. With a confident smile, he offered her a piece of advice. She should tell her sister to prepare with everything she had, implying that there were things money couldn't buy. Surprisingly, Jiang Lan's anger faded, replaced by a curious smirk. She found Su Ming intriguing and silently admitted she had overstepped. Without another word, she turned and left with her bodyguards. Onlookers were stunned, whispering about how that student had just outplayed a major figure from the Jiang H group. As they left, Su Ming's phone buzzed with a new message. He checked it. It was from Ren Xiaoman. Just as he remembered, the message asked if he had always liked her. She claimed to have had a change of heart and asked him to meet her on the roof of the academic building that night. Su Ming read it with cold amusement. Even though he hadn't awakened as the God Slayer, Ren Xiaoman's manipulative games hadn't changed. Remembering his vow of vengeance, he replied with a simple message, agreeing to meet her. With that settled, Su Ming turned his attention back to finding a weapon. He approached a nearby shop assistant and inquired about a display of jagged, rock-like objects called sword stones. The assistant explained they were weapon stones, each with a chance of producing a silver rank weapon. However, she warned him that the process was based entirely on probability, and most stones only contained the lowest grade weapons. To her surprise, Su Ming said that was exactly what he was looking for. He explained that instead of spending a fortune on a silver weapon that would soon become useless, it was a smarter bet to take a chance on a cheap stone. But as he looked at the display, Su Ming thought to himself that for him, it wasn't a gamble at all. The truth was, he could actually see the data inside the stones. This was thanks to another skill he had brought back from his past life, Eye of Insight. A system panel explained that this legendary skill gave his eyes the ability to perceive the true nature of things. Using this ability, he confidently picked up one of the stones. He knew that a regular silver rank weapon could cost hundreds or even thousands of advent coins. But by using his skill to find one hidden inside a cheap stone, it was an incredible bargain, especially for a broke student like himself. Su Ming sat with the weapon stone in hand, drawing the attention of a few nearby students. One of them, a blonde-haired boy, recognized him as the kid who had just turned down the powerful Jiang age group. The boy and his two friends approached, sneering. The blonde boy mocked him for holding what he called a garbage weapon stone, laughing at the idea that Su Ming would reject a free offer from a major corporation just to gamble on a worthless rock. They called him an idiot. Su Ming, however, remained unfazed. He recognized the blonde bully, Yang Ding, a spoiled rich kid he remembered from his past life, who used to amuse himself by picking on underclassmen. Finding the situation mildly irritating, Su Ming decided to have some fun. He calmly turned to Yang Ding and proposed a bet, 5,000 advent coins, that he could pull a silver rank weapon from the stone he was holding. After a brief pause, Yang Ding and his friends burst into laughter, thinking Su Ming was a complete fool. Yang Ding mocked him, saying there was a 99.99% chance the stone was junk and that he had never met anyone so eager to throw their money away. Su Ming simply replied that they would soon see who was really wasting their money. Yang Ding eagerly accepted the bet, and a crowd began to gather. Su Ming declared he would open the stone right then and there, warning Yang Ding not to back out. Yang Ding just laughed, telling him to worry about the 5,000 coins he was about to lose. With all eyes on him, Su Ming activated Eye of Insight. His vision shifted, revealing a glowing red sword hidden within the stone. With a confident shout, he struck the rock. A brilliant red light burst from the shattered stone, and a powerful sword flew out. Yang Ding, his friends, and the entire crowd stared in utter disbelief as Su Ming calmly caught the weapon by its hilt. A system notification appeared, identifying the weapon as a black iron crimson sword, a low-grade silver weapon with a special trait called Crimson Drinker, which allowed it to absorb the blood of monsters to heal its wielder. Standing in the stunned silence, Su Ming examined the blade, admiring it as a solid weapon. With a cold, determined look, he thought that this sword would be perfect for his meeting with Ren Xiaoman that night. Yang Ding and his friends remained frozen in shock, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Su Ming had actually pulled a silver rank weapon from a stone. Still holding the sword, Su Ming casually remarked that it wasn't bad, especially its lifesteal ability. He noted it would save him the trouble of needing a healer for the upcoming dungeon trial. A system panel confirmed the weapon was a silver rank black steel sword with plus 10% lifesteal. As Yang Ding stared in panic, Su Ming pointed the blade at him, reminding the bully that a bet was a bet, and the 5,000 advent coins were now his. Defeated, Yang Ding transferred the money. Storming off, he shouted that he wouldn't forget this humiliation. Su Ming simply advised him not to make such careless bets in the future. The shop assistant watched in amazement, realizing it had been years since anyone had actually pulled a real weapon from one of their stones. With his winnings, Su Ming returned to the counter to buy a scabbard, asking if 5,000 coins would be enough. The flustered assistant confirmed it was. He purchased a golden, ornate silver rank scabbard that reduced weapon durability loss by 50%. Su Ming was satisfied, knowing it would greatly reduce wear and tear on the sword. As he held his newly sheathed blade, a system notification appeared, asking if he wanted to activate a hidden function called Weapon Manifestation. He declined, thinking the time wasn't right. With a smirk, he reminded himself he still needed to raise the weapon's rank. Later, while walking through a park, Su Ming reflected on his situation. He acknowledged that after awakening as the sword god, he still lacked a single usable class skill. However, his class came with an incredibly powerful primal talent, Universal Ascension. This unique ability allowed him to upgrade the quality of any item once, making his mythic class truly deserving of its rank. Holding his sword, he activated the talent. A system notification appeared. Universal Ascension activated. The enhancement was successful, and the Crimson Drinker effect was upgraded. The sword glowed with a powerful red aura. A final notification revealed the weapon's new status. A Crimson Black Steel Sword, upgraded to high silver rank. Its Crimson Drinker ability had been enhanced to drain a target's blood on contact, and it had gained a new skill, Bloodthirst, granting a temporary +5 boost to all stats for 30 seconds after killing a monster. Su Ming was pleased with the upgrade. With preparations complete, he finally activated the hidden weapon manifestation, fully confident that the beginner dungeon the following day would be no challenge. Later that night, Su Ming arrived at the rooftop of the academic building. He stood silhouetted against the futuristic cityscape, his new sword in hand. Rin Xiaoman was already there. She turned to him with a seductive smile, greeting him and playfully chiding him for being late. Her smile vanished instantly. Without a word, Su Ming swung his sword at her. She screamed and barely avoided the strike as the blade smashed into the concrete ledge where she had been standing. Staring at him in disbelief, she demanded to know what he was doing. With a cold, unwavering gaze, Su Ming told her he had come for revenge. A painful memory from his past life flashed before him. The moment of his death, holding the dying Jiao, while Rin Xiaoman watched without an ounce of remorse. Rin Xiaoman stood frozen, bewildered and furious. She demanded to know what he was talking about, reminding him that she had just accepted his confession. Holding up her phone, she showed a message history where he had told her he liked her and asked her out. She yelled in frustration, pointing out that he was the one who wanted to date her. She couldn't understand why he was now trying to hurt her. Su Ming stood silently, his expression hard and unreadable. Then, with a cold, knowing smirk, he told her that while she was right about the confession, that had happened in a past life. His mind drifted back, replaying their former relationship. He remembered how she had been the most popular girl in school, while he was just a lonely orphan. He recalled the day after the first awakening ceremony, dejected and isolated, when she approached him with a kind smile and asked if he was all right. From that moment on, he had felt that someone cared. That illusion led to his text message confession, their romantic dates, and eventually, their intimacy. But that happy past shattered the day he saw a photograph of her and Jiang Tang together, a symbol of her ultimate betrayal. Back in the present, Su Ming's expression twisted with fury. He shouted that it had all been a lie. With blazing anger, he accused her, declaring that he knew everything about her secret dealings with Jiang Tang, and that she had only ever used him. Rin Xiaoman was completely stunned. She stammered, insisting he was talking nonsense, and tried to deny the accusations. But Su Ming was merciless. He told her that she knew whether he was lying or not. He said her poised and beautiful image was just a mask. Then he leaned in, his voice dripping with venom, and told her that her true self was nothing more than a vain, shameless fraud. At that, Rin Xiaoman's composure finally cracked. Her face twisted with rage as she dropped the act. She screamed at him, demanding what someone like him could possibly know. She spat venomously, calling him an orphan and saying that if his talent hadn't been useful, she would never have even acknowledged him. Then she threatened him, shouting that neither she nor Jiang Tang would let him get away with insulting her. Su Ming met her threats with a calm, dismissive smirk. He dared her to try, but warned her to be more concerned about how this little incident would affect her carefully crafted, pure as jade public image. That final jab pushed her over the edge. Seething with fury, she lunged for the sword Su Ming had left embedded in the concrete and swung it at him. As the blade flew toward him, Su Ming thought to himself that her actions were just like in his past life. But this time he was ready. Just as the sword was about to strike, tendrils of red energy burst from the blade, halting it in midair and leaving Ren Xiaoman stunned. Su Ming explained that he had seen this coming. He knew her treacherous nature all too well. A system notification confirmed the activation of his weapon's Crimson Drinker ability. The tendrils surged out from the blade, and wrapped tightly around Rin Xiaoman. Su Ming revealed his trap. The moment he had targeted her with his weapon's ability, her fate had been sealed. The tendril shot forward and struck her directly in the face. She let out a piercing scream of agony, crying that her face was ruined. As she crumpled to the ground, Su Ming stood over her and coldly told her that she had brought this upon herself. He was about to declare this the beginning of his revenge, but she cut him off, screaming that she would have Jiang Tang kill him. Unfazed, Su Ming simply recalled his sword, which dematerialized into his inventory. He turned and walked away, telling her to go ahead. Jiang Tang could come for him whenever he was ready. He declared that today's strike was his severance. As he left her crying on a rooftop, he reflected that this blow had also served to sever the affection he had once treasured so deeply. Later, he received a notification on his phone. It was a gift from the academy. The message was from Principal Wang, congratulating him on his awakening and including a reward package to help him prepare for the beginner dungeon. The package contained 1 fortification pill, a combat gear package, and 10,000 advent coins. The next day began at 6 a.m. Su Ming held the fortification pill in his hand. He acknowledged the generosity of the gift, but suspected it was out of pity, assuming that awakening a weak Swordmaster class, despite having a 10-star talent, had triggered some sympathy. He ate the pill and immediately grimaced, complaining about the awful taste. But the bitterness was quickly forgotten as he was engulfed in a golden aura. A system notification flashed before his eyes. The pill had granted him plus 10 constitution and 100 experience points, enough to immediately level him up to level 2 and award him 10 free attribute points. As his status screen updated, a new passive talent activated, Innate Sword Body. This talent meant he had formed a sword within his heart, allowing him to learn any sword-type skill without the usual prerequisites or restrictions. Su Ming was pleased. As expected of his 10-star talent, he could gain powerful abilities just by leveling up. Smirking with renewed confidence, he declared that he would show everyone his true strength in the Novice Dungeon. He arrived at the First Academy's Novice Dungeon Plaza, a busy area filled with students and glowing portals. A group of classmates approached him, the same students who had mocked him the day before. Now, they eagerly offered to team up. They praised his 10-star talent and mentioned the principal's gift, insisting the dungeon would be easy with him. They volunteered their classes to support his Swordmaster role, hoping to ride his coattails to a high score. Su Ming was disgusted by their hypocrisy. Just yesterday, they had looked down on him. He coldly refused, stating he already had a team. His words were overheard by Ji Yao, who rushed over in surprise, asking when he had formed a team. She explained she had come early just to be the first to invite him. Caught off guard, Su Ming tried to explain. He told her his goals weren't for the usual dungeon rewards, and he was worried she might get hurt. Then, leaning in, he whispered his true intention. He planned to challenge the dungeon alone. Just as Ji Yao was processing this, they were interrupted by a blue-haired student with a confident smile. He introduced himself as Yans, a 9-star Demon Hunter Ranger, and formally invited Su Ming to his team. Su Ming recognized Yans from his past life and, without hesitation, flatly refused the offer. Before Yans could press the issue, Ji stepped in. She put her arm around Su Ming's shoulders and announced he had already teamed up with her, so everyone should stop bothering him. The other students, including Yans, apologized and left. As the crowd dispersed, Su Ming looked at Ji with gratitude, thinking how reliable she was. Standing with Ji, he glanced at a clock, noting that the dungeon's start time was approaching. Right on cue, a massive blue portal swirled to life, and a voice announced that the 127th Novice Dungeon Challenge had officially begun. From the portal, a holographic broadcast of Principal Wang appeared. Looking like he had just woken up, he apologized for oversleeping. He explained the rules of the mandatory one-day trial. Every student was pre-registered, and inside, they would earn points based on their contributions. He strongly advised them to form teams to increase their survival chances and complete the challenge within the day. As the principal spoke, Ji turned to Su Ming, only to find he had vanished. She looked around confused. Before anyone could react, Principal Wang officially declared the dungeon open. In that instant, a figure shot past the other students and dove straight into the portal. The crowd erupted in shock, shouting that someone had already gone in and quickly identifying the lone challenger as the 10-star student, Su Ming. Upon entering the dungeon, Su Ming was hit with nostalgia. He remembered how, in his first life, he had been both scared and excited. A powerful voice then echoed, welcoming the novices. It explained that the dungeon was a place of danger and opportunity, and to leave, they needed to defeat the regular boss. However, it also hinted at a higher difficulty method for greater rewards. With a determined look, Su Ming declared his new goal. In this life, he would choose the most difficult challenge and slay the dungeon's ultimate hidden boss. He found himself in a lush, moonlit jungle identified by the system as the Raging Tide Forest, a level F zone. He immediately noted the map for the novice dungeon changed every year, making this location different from his past life. He also knew the spawn point was random for every challenger, meaning route planning had to be done on the fly. This also meant the monsters he would encounter would be different, adding another layer of unpredictability. Su Ming began to explore and quickly encountered a formidable foe, a massive sentient tree monster with a head of roaring fire and a menacing carved face. He knew from his past life that this monster, while immobile, would use its vines to drag targets into its fiery maw. However, his goal was not to fight every monster. He was focused on the hidden boss. Therefore, he decided it was best to avoid such difficult enemies. He looked at a holographic map, plotting his course. He thought about how his reason for rushing in first was to give himself a head start. He needed to scout the new layout and find the items required to summon the hidden boss. While the map changed every year, he knew the fundamental strategy to trigger the boss fight would remain the same. He had to act quickly before more students arrived and made it harder to collect the necessary items. With his plan set, he leapt into action, bounding through the dense forest. Sometime later, at 7:30 a.m., another group of students entered the dungeon. A girl with light blue hair and her 2 male teammates looked around the quiet clearing. They noted there were no other challengers nearby and assumed the area was safe. Their sense of security shattered when the girl heard a noise in the trees and alerted her team. They looked up just in time to see another student crash through the foliage. The boy, wielding a hammer, landed near them, screaming for help. The newly arrived team could only stare in shock as the source of the chase was revealed: 2 giant monstrous rats with glowing red eyes. Recognizing the bloodthirsty rats, the students' courage failed, and in a panic, they split up and ran for their lives. Back in the plaza, the trial's danger became apparent. At 7:31 a.m., a real-time report flashed above the portal, announcing that 3 challengers had been devoured by the bloodthirsty rats. The most powerful fallen student was 6-star Li Debeo. Ji Yao, still trying to form a team, was shocked. Alarmed that a 6-star student had fallen so quickly, she urgently called for everyone to speed up team formation, shouting that the people inside desperately needed help. Meanwhile, inside the Raging Tide Forest, the situation was grim. The blue-haired girl who had been chased was now running for her life, alone and injured. In the panic, she had been separated from her teammates and had lost all sense of direction. As she tried to get her bearings, she sensed a new presence. Looking up, she saw the silhouette of a massive, ape-like monster perched in the trees. The creature dropped to the ground, its glowing red eyes glaring down at her with malice. Paralyzed with fear, the girl could only watch as the giant beast leapt toward her. In her final moment, she squeezed her eyes shut and screamed for someone to save her. Suddenly, a flash of red light shot past her. In a stunning burst of speed, Su Ming appeared. His crimson-black steel sword became a blur as he struck the ape monster. The novice dungeon trial was more lethal than the students had expected. Panic gripped the newly awakened as they found themselves scattered and overwhelmed. One terrified student lamented his luck after encountering an elite level 5 bloodthirsty brown bear right at the start. His lament turned into a scream as he was brutally impaled by the beast. The chaos wasn't confined to one area. Throughout the forest, other students fled from creatures like the level 2 swamp hunter and level 3 tracking hound, with many meeting the same fatal end. Calls for help flooded the communication channels, filled with desperate reports that the teleport points were completely surrounded by monster hordes, requesting urgent backup that wasn't coming. In the midst of the carnage, Ji Yao found herself completely alone, surrounded by the lifeless bodies of her teammates. Grief-stricken and terrified, she collapsed into the tall grass, trembling as she remembered her teammates telling her to hide. Barely half an hour had passed since the trial began, and the difficulty was so high she doubted whether any new student could possibly survive. Elsewhere in the forest, the light blue-haired girl stood in shock, cornered by the giant ape monster. Just as the beast lunged at her, a flurry of swift sword strikes tore through the air. Su Ming appeared in a blur, leaping over the terrified girl and landing gracefully between her and the monster. The girl stared at him in awe, thinking he was incredibly strong and had killed the beast in a single blow. Gratefully, she began to thank him, recognizing him and asking if he was the famous 10-star student, Su Ming. With a calm smile, Su Ming replied that he was just passing by. He then warned her grimly that he wouldn't be able to save her a second time, revealing that the monster was not dead yet. Shocked, the girl turned and saw the menacing shadow of the creature still looming behind her. Panicked, she declared she would get reinforcements and shouted for Su Ming to hang on as she ran for her life. Now alone with the beast, Su Ming calmly activated his Eye of Insight. A system panel identified the monster as a mutated Ape King, a level 3 ferocious beast with high strength and constitution, but very low agility. Realizing it was a mutated creature, Su Ming understood why it had survived a direct hit from his silver-grade weapon. The Ape King recovered and leapt into the air, slamming its massive fists downward. But Su Ming easily dodged. With a smirk, he noted the monster's speed wasn't half bad and decided to have a little contest. Recalling one of the skills he inherited from his past life, he activated the third one, Hidden God Step. A system notification explained that this skill was an acceleration technique that boosted speed by 50% and made the user completely immune to all attacks and untargetable while active, though it consumed a large amount of stamina. A surge of brilliant teal energy enveloped Su Ming. He vanished in an instant, reappearing directly behind the confused Ape King, taunting that he was now behind it. The monster roared and spun to attack, but Su Ming flashed away again. Looking down at the now off-balance, vulnerable beast, Su Ming declared the contest over, calling it boring and one-sided. The mutated Ape King could only stare in shock, Su Ming's silhouette reflected in its terrified eyes as he prepared to strike. Declaring he was done playing, Su Ming unleashed a final devastating blow, slicing the monster clean in half. A system notification immediately confirmed his victory. As the monster's body dissolved into data, a loot screen appeared. He had obtained a low-grade bronze single-skill scroll. He stood over the remains of his foe, thinking that while the skill was of low rank, it was still a decent find for the novice dungeon. Suddenly, he was engulfed in a brilliant golden light as a large First Blood title appeared before him. A dungeon-wide announcement was broadcast, declaring that a level 2 Swordmaster had completed the first kill in the Tidewave Forest, earning the First Blood title. All across the dungeon, struggling students were shocked by the notification. As a reward, every player was gifted a small healing potion. One injured girl clutched the potion that appeared in her hand, sighing in relief. The students began to speculate about the mysterious Swordmaster. Some immediately guessed it was the 10-star student, Su Ming. Others argued it could be a different Swordmaster, but they all agreed the achievement gave them hope that the dungeon was beatable. Back in his clearing, Su Ming panicked. He had completely forgotten about the public title system. Realizing it could expose his true strength, he resolved to be more careful, planning to use his total concealment skill to hide his future achievements. He was also surprised that after half an hour, he was still the first person to kill a single monster. As he ran deeper into the forest, he suddenly stopped. A pack of level 3 dire wolves emerged from the bushes, their green eyes glowing menacingly. Su Ming smirked, recognizing the wolves as some of the best monsters for leveling up. He decided this was the perfect opportunity to try out his newly acquired sword skill. He had already used his unique talent, Universal Ascension, to upgrade the bronze skill scroll dropped by the ape. The system had triggered the skill's sublimation, transforming it into a more powerful ability. He had obtained a low-grade silver skill, Sword Drawing Slash, a technique that allowed him to sheath his sword, gather his focus, and unleash a devastating strike in a single motion. As the dire wolves howled, Su Ming unleashed his new power. A massive crescent-shaped wave of blue energy descended upon the charging pack.